and welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron Houghton. Joining me today, we've got Paul.
Hello.
And Ivan.
Hey.
And Darren.
Hey.
All right, our feature review today is going to be Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, starring Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Alan Tudyk, Ben Mendelsohn, and Forrest Whitaker. Later on, we'll do our Rant and Rave segment, where we each chat about our latest discoveries. But first, let's start with what's going on in the entertainment world with...
News on the mark!
All right, first news. The proposed Harley Quinn film is being ditched, and DC has decided to create... Is Sirens of Gotham? You've heard of this?
Yeah.
Is it a comic book? I don't know the origins of this title. All I know is it's supposed to feature Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy.
They've
kind of
done like all-female type team-ups in DC. I don't remember if they call them Sirens of Gotham, but I know that Harley and Poison Ivy have been a pretty common team-up. I know Catwoman and Poison Ivy can sometimes do a team-up and do a thing, but Catwoman and Harley, I don't really see.
And what do we think about a movie with three super villainesses?
If it's, like Suicide Squad, then no. But if they actually put in the effort, then yeah.
If they actually act like anti-heroes or villainesses, then I think that would be more interesting. Having three female leads will be interesting enough, but having that spin on it would just give it that added little bit of extra, for me anyways.
Yeah. Speaking of Suicide Squad, I should mention David Ayer, who made Suicide Squad, is helmed to direct.
It's not a good sign. I mean, it sounds like a more interesting potential film than Marvel's Night Nurses would be. But, yeah, we got so many superhero movies these days, it's something different.
They also kind of showed them not getting along. I definitely think this is... Because if they stick to their comic book counterparts, they work together because it's almost they have to. But then there's definitely one of those where their personalities, there's a huge clash. Like, I know Poison Ivy, even from the 90s cartoon, Poison Ivy's just totally annoyed with how Harley's just so over the top in love with the Joker that she's like, oh my god, I want to smack you in the face.
I think it's interesting that DC, and it's very good that DC seems to be embracing the female heroine a little bit more with giving Wonder Woman a lead movie right away, whereas Marvel, I mean, Black Widow's been on screen forever, and they're just now talking about giving her own movie. And that's she's just been supporting up until now. But yeah, the fact that DC seems to be really pushing forward with that's encouraging.
Yeah. And Harley Quinn was one of the bright spots of Suicide Squad.
I hated the accent, but yeah. But I mean, even in Marvel, they're going to do a Captain Marvel movie before Black Widow.
True, but just look at how
many years into their release schedule is it to get a female lead superhero film?
And I agree, but that was also the change in the people in charge, right? Because the guy that was in charge before Kevin Feige,
Perlmutter?
That's the guy. He did not see much money in females, and the reason why they never even had any merchandise with females on it was because he was just completely against it. Like he was all up to him. Yeah, he might have
had a lot to do with shutting down the Black Widow movie.
Yeah,
but you can also understand who they started with three guys, and they wanted to finish their trilogies, and we might get a Captain Marvel trilogy.
True.
Fair. Encouraging.
If they put as much effort into it as they do all the other ones, which I think they will, that they'll definitely make a good movie. I mean, because at this point right now, the movies sell themselves. So just, people saying like, is Scarlett Johansson the big draw that she'll bring into... It doesn't matter. It's Black Widow, it's Marvel.
And as far as the DC universe is concerned, we still have many films to go through before we get to this one anyway. So we'll see where they're at that point. Yeah. But speaking of DC, also in other news, Aquaman, the Aquaman film, directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa, has cast its villain. Patrick Wilson from Watchmen fame will be cast as Ocean Master. This is not a character I'm very familiar with, but I'm not the biggest Aquaman fan either.
Yeah, me either.
I know of him from some of their animated features, and he seems to be an effective enough villain. For me personally, and not knowing the Aquaman character too much, you almost expect a Black Manta, which is the big Aquaman villain, really, that, from the 70s Super Friends cartoon, where they included a super villain for all of the superheroes. He was the one that was included, and he seems to be a little more iconic, but Patrick Wilson's awesome. I really enjoy his performance and everything I've seen him in. So.
Yeah, we were talking about him on the Bone Tomahawk podcast, I was saying what an everyman he is, but this isn't an everyman performance. This is like bad villain guy.
True, but it's also, I think that they're saving the Black Manta for a sequel, so you can go, you're establishing the character. Maybe they feel like if they have to do so much with Aquaman, that maybe introducing this iconic villain, they're not going to be able to give him as much, so that way, give this guy the chance, introduce this guy in the sequel where you can spend more time on him because know enough about Aquaman and kind of go on, right? Develop and do them properly.
As the more non-comic book fan, Darren, are you excited about an Aquaman movie?
Aquaman seems like one of the more dull DC characters to me.
Are you only familiar with him from Super Friends?
More or less, honestly, yeah.
Or Entourage?
But the thing is, though, he's not, like, if you actually know about his history, he's not one of the most boring ones.
He doesn't just talk to
There's
fishes.
a very rich background.
But you know
there.
who doesn't know about his history? Guys who don't read comic books. So
True.
Yeah.
He has never been given his due.
Outside of
Yeah.
Batman and Robin and Superman, I mean, what do really I know about the DC universe? Not a whole lot. So I hear about an Aquaman movie, and that's an even bigger meh for me than Suicide Squad.
Yeah, but what's once again, if they do it right, because how many people knew about Guardians of the Galaxy, and that came out and they did a good job and people loved it.
Exactly.
So.
I'll see it if the reviews are good, but
Yeah.
The thing about Aquaman is he's not really a Guardians of the Galaxy either. You might not know a lot about Aquaman, but I think everybody has heard the name Aquaman.
And there's all those
I have
memes.
high hopes for this movie. I'm not sold on the visual I've seen of the characters so far. This kind of
Darker,
Viking
more
guy.
badass.
Right.
Yeah, Viking under the sea.
I actually prefer my Super Friends version in the orange suit, but
the scale pants.
absolutely. But we'll see what happens with that. More comic book news. Funny thing happened last week. The Golden Globe nominations came out, and Deadpool got 2 nominations. One for Best Picture, musical or comedy, and one for Best Actor, Ryan Reynolds. It's got to be the first awards ever given to a film like this, a comic book film anyways.
Especially not a rated one.
Yeah, I was surprised at it. I wasn't the biggest fan of this film, but it was such a giant hit, and audiences responded to it. I guess they did too.
And critics did too, so it kind of doesn't surprise me. They're not going to give it a Best Picture drama.
I guess if The
Nod,
Tourist
but-
got nominated a few years ago, that
Fair
piece
enough,
of
it's the
shit
Golden
was-
Globes,
right.
and
So
anything can happen,
possible,
literally.
right?
Well, I think it kind of speaks to what you were saying on the last podcast, Darren, where there's certain things that are expected, and then when you get something that kind of goes against the grain, or it's such a down year for movies, and then all of a sudden you get kind of that gem that maybe in other years would kind of get pushed to the wayside. Maybe that gem shines a little more this time around. Just, I think the fact that it was the anti-hero movie that I guess everybody was kind of looking for at the time, it just hit at the right time, and audiences ate it up. I really enjoyed it.
It's nice to see it so early in the year as a release too, that it's being remembered.
Absolutely,
At awards
yeah.
season.
True. It's very
I heard about the Golden Globes from interviews in the past and from actors that they're also kind of for sale, I guess you could say.
There's a long controversy regarding the Golden Globes and their practices. If people don't know, it's a very small group of people. The Academy, I think over 2,500 people vote on the Academy Awards nominations. The Golden Globe, I think, has less than 80 members.
Something like that. And I think they have to publish once a year to maintain their membership. Part of the Golden
Publish
Globe.
what?
Well, some sort of writing on movies.
Exactly.
Article or whatever in a newspaper or magazine.
How difficult is that?
Yeah, well, these rules were set before before the concept of a blog or even the internet was
Or a
ever
tweet.
right. These arcanic rules. But I'd love to be a member of that group. They get a lot of merch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from what I heard, that I was reading up on this, and most movies that, especially the ones that are kind of Oscar bait, that in their budget is built in like $10 million just for chasing an Oscar.
Oh, I'm sure.
From all the parties and all the things that they have to do. Because it's almost like you're running for an election, like all the things that they have to do to bring these people to them, and they have to like basically woo him and do all this other. I think Michael Fassbender even came on and said he will never ever go for another Oscar after going for one for 12 Years a Slave, because he said the process was just so stupid and brutal that he just said it wasn't worth it.
Is that his decision? Like, I don't know how that works, but is that his decision, or is that the studio who he works for that maybe sees that his role has traction and that can get the studio
But I think that they have to get him to be involved.
I believe, the person actually who will be ultimately nominated can withhold him or herself from the nomination.
And they have to be on like a campaign trail as well. Like they have to be out campaigning to win it.
I just wasn't sure if that was something that could be included in a contract, right? Like, kind of,
And it is.
Contractually, they are obligated to do publicity for the movie, sure, but when it comes down to that type of awards, especially for the actor himself, I think it's up to him entirely how much he wants to pursue it.
And that makes sense because of other obligations to other projects that they're going in. They may not have the schedule clear enough to devote to something like that. So, interesting.
Shall we get to our feature review? I can't wait to talk about this movie.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we've all been there.
That would be Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
The Empire's building a terrible weapon. I need your help. We can stop them. This is your chance to make a real difference. We have hope. with me?
All the way.
Okay, that was Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. The IMDb summary. The Rebel Alliance attempts a risky move to steal the Death Star, setting up the epic saga to follow. I thought we'd just start with our thoughts of Star Wars in general, how we feel about this entire franchise, and what we expected from this film. Paul?
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. My guest bedroom in my condo is actually a Star Wars room where all the memorabilia that I've gathered from when I was a kid to adulthood culminated in actually having a room in my house that's devoted to it. So you might say I'm a bit of a fan. Haven't loved absolutely everything that I've seen in the Star Wars universe. There's so much out there that it's impossible for it all to be hits. Obviously, The Inn was when I was a kid and saw the original trilogy on the big screen, so absolutely became an obsession when I was a kid that, like I said, led into adulthood. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the prequels, of course. There's some good stuff in there, in my opinion, and some stuff that I wish was better, and there's other versions on the internet that I'm curious to see if they are better. If it's Star Wars, odds are I will watch it, so I am a fan, you could say.
Awesome. Ivan?
I am a fan. Not as big as Paul here, but I didn't grow up with Star Wars just because where I grew up with, I never even heard of Star Wars until I came to Canada, but I liked it. I enjoyed originals, of course. I still watch them. I think probably go through the entire series once a year at least. The prequels, I'd say with Paul, I think they get a lot of hate. They're not as bad as a lot of people say, but there's a lot of stupid crap in there, but I still enjoy them. I wouldn't go, okay, I'm rewatching. I'm just going to skip the prequels. I'm like, no, I'm going to watch them all. I am a collector as well. I do have a lot of Star Wars stuff in my house, not as much as Paul, but I got a ton of stuff, including Legos, which is awesome. Millennium Falcon. Along with lightsabers. The wife even dressed up as Darth Talon that one year at the Expo. She was pretty popular in that fucking suit.
Yes, she was.
So yeah, I like it. I was pretty excited for this movie, and like Paul said, if something comes out that says Star Wars, I'm watching it.
All right, Darren.
Yeah. I was born in 1976, much like Paul. Grew up with the Star Wars franchise. Love the original trilogy.
Did your parents take you to see Star Wars in the theater?
I saw it in its 1978 re-release.
Okay.
I was 2 years old at the drive-in.
Really? Awesome.
I have a vague memory of it. I really remember Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And for most of my life, I've considered Star Wars my favorite movie. I'm a big defender of the prequels.
Is that Star Wars in general or Star Wars A New Hope?
Star Wars Episode 4. I think A New Hope is a lame subtitle, so I never call it Star Wars A New Hope. It's Star Wars. The prequels have their issues, but I like a lot about them. I can accept some of the criticism. Others, I think, are just based on people's dislike of the movie. They're willing to throw the entire thing under the bus. Recent animated series have been very good. Force Awakens was fantastic, and this movie did not disappoint either. I was rather a fan. I was looking forward to it, and I'll say no more and let Ron have his little bit.
Excellent. So I'm definitely a Star Wars fan. I don't watch everything. I don't read the books like some of you guys, but for me, Star Wars movies have been a huge part of my life. I would say into my early 20s, if someone asked me my favorite movie, I would say it was Star Wars. Episode 4. A New Hope.
Oh, well, that one.
That one. And yes, I was super excited about this movie. Yeah, as for the prequels, they are what they are. But I was amped up for Force Awakens and ready to see what Lucasfilm is going to do with this approach of having a Star Wars film every single year. Like Darren, on the last podcast, you said you weren't as excited about this as Force Awakens. I think I was. Maybe deep down, I was kind of, maybe hiding it. We had all heard of infamous reshoots and things like that, and maybe problems with the movie, but I went in with very high expectations still. And let's start talking about how we felt about this movie. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I think going into Force Awakens, everybody was saying this is going to make you feel like a Star Wars fan again. This is a Star Wars movie. This is what you remember. I went in feeling that, and I got that, but there was too many allusions to the first one.
There's a little too much of this is a Star Wars movie.
This movie, this movie didn't have anything that made me think about the other movies except for exactly what it wanted me to think about these movies, being a seamless transition into Episode 4. Maybe the one thing I was most worried about was in this film was how are they going to pull it off? How are they going to make a 2016 film to lead into a film that was made in 1977 or 75? And they knocked it out spectacularly. beyond my wildest imagination, this movie works with episode 4. I can't believe how well they did it. Paul?
I want to say I loved it, but to be honest, there was just so much going on. Early on, I kind of got a little lost when they were transitioning from one planet to the other and trying to kind of wrap my head around what was going on.
Even with the new labels on the planets?
Yeah. But it was a lot for me to keep track of, and I put that more on me than the film. That is not the film's fault that I was unable to follow it. I think on a rewatch, obviously...
Your excitement level might have been really geared up, too. I find when I'm really hyped up for a movie, I can't really even concentrate on the first 20 minutes. You know?
And there were so many new shiny toys, shall we say. Like, there was so much going on, and it was... I think I alluded to this on the last podcast when we were talking about our excitement level for it. And I had said that I had been talking with my buddy, and one of the reasons I was limiting what I saw going into this was you only get to see this fresh once, and this was the first movie in forever that you didn't know the core characters at all. And so I will likely love it after the second screening. Like I said, it's just the fact that I can't wait to see it again speaks a lot to how much I really enjoyed it.
I haven't stopped thinking about this movie since I saw it.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Maybe I didn't make my point clear, but I like this movie more than Force Awakens.
For me right now, I'd say it's on the same level, because I actually really enjoyed The Force Awakens. I know a lot of people say it's a rehash of the original trilogy, and there's definitely nods to it, but I think it puts enough spin on it. But this, there's just so many new toys. There's so many new things going on. And Darren and I saw each other. We were at the same screening, and we both said after coming out, like, wow, that is definitely got a completely different feel from other Star Wars movies, which is good. To its credit, I think it needed that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, Ivan, what'd you think?
I really liked it. I agree with you. I liked it more than Force Awakens. And my biggest thing that I might be nitpicking, but the thing that really makes Force Awakens go below this, because I just really hated that weapon that they created in it, because to me made absolutely no sense. Just because, how do you shoot that thing in different directions? Because it's a fucking planet. You have to wait until it rotates. But let's not get into it.
You guys will get used to these Ivan nitpicks that he has.
But
very critical analysis.
Yeah, but
and I'm not arguing. You're right, but I let those go.
Yeah, anyway. and that's the thing though. I still really enjoy the movie. I've probably watched the movie 6 times, because even some days when I'm sitting at home, I'm bored. I'm like, hey, Netflix, Star Wars, done. So I really love this one. I thought it was great. I really loved the part how they put the wars in the Star Wars.
In a big way.
Yeah, so when I sat back, I was like, holy I was going. Sitting in the theater, like my excitement level, especially when things started amping up, I was like, holy crap. My wife was beside me. She took off her shoes. She's like in a ball in the chair. She's like jumping up and down. So excited as things were happening. I really liked it. The only criticism, this might be nitpicky, and this is kind of like my thing with not Star Wars movies, just Marvel Disney movies.
It's just your thing.
It's the quips a few times. I was kind of like, fucking enough.
There was one specific that stood out to me that we will get into in spoilers that just for me didn't land, and sorry,
no worries. That's my only criticism. Like, I loved the movie. The only part that I didn't like was that, and I wouldn't say that I was like, okay, the movie's ruined for me. There was just a couple of times and they would make a quip and I'm just whatever, keep going. But I guess that's my issue with most of their movies when they come out. They always have these little quips, and sometimes they land in a good way, and sometimes it just kind of falls flat, and I'm just stop trying to shoehorn some of these things. Okay, I get it. You want to be lighter, but don't force stuff in. But aside from that, like, I thought the movie was amazing. I liked all the characters they introduced. I liked how some of the existing characters that were there, what they did with them. I definitely liked how the existing characters did not become a focal point, like or they didn't try to shoehorn stuff in, like in the prequels, how Anakin created C-3PO, and that created so many more issues for all these other movies. Like, why doesn't anybody remember?
In fact, it's the opposite. They fix a few things.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I thought that when they brought in the original stuff, that none of it felt forced. Everything was smooth. Everything fit.
Felt like it should be there.
Exactly. It was... I want to see it again. I saw it yesterday. I'm like, fuck, I wish I had the time to see it again, like right before this podcast, if I wasn't busy with D&D earlier.
All right, Darren.
I really like this movie. Maybe not as high as you three. I can't say I can't wait to see it again, although I am excited to see it again. It's great, as I said to Paul the night of the movie. It doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie, and in a way that's good. In a way, it's almost kind of a shortcoming.
It feels different from a Star Wars movie.
It feels different.
But it feels like a Star Wars movie.
Because there's lasers and ships and stuff in it, but it doesn't... Can you say it has the same tone as any of the original trilogy? Silence. I take that as a no.
It's slightly different tone, but you're in that world. You're in that universe.
Well,
you're immersed in it. I just...
well, yeah, it's Star Wars, but it doesn't feel like any of the previous Star Wars films.
That might be one of the things I like the most about it. It's a different vision.
Yeah, I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I'm just saying it's... Well, so you all agree with me?
And I would say that
it doesn't feel like a Star Wars film.
Movies, if they weren't constrained by the technology of the time, they probably would have been more like this movie with older battles and everything else going on.
I think it felt like a Star Wars movie, but it just kind of didn't feel like the Star Wars that we know. I see what you're saying. I think it felt enough like one that it didn't feel like a completely different franchise just with Star Wars ships replacing something else.
Yeah.
For me.
So, to continue, it doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie in the traditional sense of the 7 we have so far. And the way that's a shortcoming to me is that in The Force Awakens, it has such strong characters, and not just the return of Luke and Chewie and Han and Leia and the droids, but the new characters, too. They feel appropriate to the Star Wars universe. I'd say the Diego Luna character, whose name I don't even remember.
Cassian Andor.
Felicia Jones's character,
Jyn
Erso. They're a little less memorable. Compare them to Finn or Rey. Not by a long shot are they as good as either of those. Like, by a long shot. And not necessarily a terrible thing. Those were some fantastic characters they introduced in The Force Awakens. But it doesn't quite feel as strong as that. It is, in the way it's good that it doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie, is that The Force Awakens was, so much of a rehash of the previous films. And this was not. It feels completely different. And I'm glad for that. As soon as they announced the standalone films, I said, I'm excited to see different takes on the Star Wars universe. We got that in this film, and some compared it to The Dirty Dozen. Mm-hmm. It is. It's a very good war film. And for obvious reasons, I guess, it doesn't really need as strong, memorable characters. But we talked about the planet names and stuff, too, and how you were a little lost, Paul. And I kind of felt the same way. And a lot of that is that George Lucas and, after him, J.J. Abrams and company, they came up with some great character names, great planet names, great alien species names, great faction names, whatever. The names in this are not that great. Jyn Erso, the Diego Luna character you just said 2 seconds ago.
Names, right.
I don't remember. Yeah, their character names are not as good. The planet names are not as good.
Sure,
yeah. Minor criticism. It is a really good film, and who remembers all the planet names and all the other movies anyways?
I actually thought you guys might have been more familiar because you guys have read the books and stuff. Like, I'm sure Planet Jedha must be in...
I haven't read a ton of the expanded universe. Huh. I've read a little bit here or there, but I haven't read a ton of it. I've read more of the comic-based stuff, less of the actual novelization stuff. So
this Jedha planet is new? It seems to be kind of kind of saying it's the birthplace of the Jedis, right? Jedi.
No, it's not. They were saying that that's where they were getting the crystals to power the lightsabers. But if I remember from the expanded universe, like the place where the kind of birth of the Jedi are usually these like old planets that nobody really lives on anymore, and they're kind of this was like a trading planet, before the Empire came in. But most of these like older Jedi places were kind of like places that nobody else lived on. It was just kind of like Jedi were there, they were training with the Force, and then they move, and then they don't get a lot of visitors.
I like the fact that we saw a lot of new worlds in this, and new places, new stuff, new ships. They had lots of new ideas for this movie.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. I liked all the new planets, as unmemorable as the names might have been. I loved seeing all the mix of cultures on Jedha. That was incredible.
I agree. Yep.
Well, it was the only planet where they really actually spend extended period of time on, where you can actually see different cultures and species. Whereas all the other planets was like very quick.
A few old faces.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious, Darren, since you're so focused on score, what did you think of the score?
This was really good.
What do we think about a Star Wars movie that didn't open with... Were you waiting for it?
No. There's very few references to older themes in this film. Had they had lots of references, well, it's a Star Wars film, so it wouldn't have been that big of a surprise. But being outside the main series of episodes, it didn't surprise me that it didn't have the crawl or a lot of references to themes. For a composer at various ages growing up with the Star Wars films, you'd think, on the one hand, man, who wouldn't want to do a Star Wars film? And then on the other hand, it's some pretty big shoes to fill. So what do? I thought Michael Giacchino came up with a lot of great new themes, some pretty memorable themes that maybe not a John Williams level of memorable, but that's a pretty big level of memorable. One thing that I'm even questioning, did I hear what I think I heard? And after it played, am I sure? Did I just hear that? And I don't think it's too much of a spoiler at all to say this, because the character is seen in a trailer. Can we say that character that's seen in the trailer, for me to bring up that character's presence in the film, is not a spoiler?
I would say we all know the character you're talking about.
Yeah, so the character of Darth Vader, great movie villain.
Oh, God, I didn't know you were going to say him.
Shit. I'm sorry, folks.
All right, you spoiled it now.
You ruined the movie for everybody.
At the first moment of Darth Vader's appearance, I won't say what's going on at that moment, but when the character of Darth Vader first appears on the screen, Giacchino references the Darth Vader theme that John Williams wrote for Episode 4, which was, of course, 3 years before the Imperial March was written, so it's not one that fans would know instantly unless they really focus on the music. And after it was done, I was like, whoa, wait a second. Did I just hear like the original Episode 4 Darth Vader theme? And then he transitions right away into the Imperial March. It was just a great old nod to that original theme, which has not made appearance in a movie since
If anybody's going to pick that reference up, it's going to be you.
Yeah, for sure. And he did make a few nods to, the Force theme and the Imperial March here and there when it was very appropriate. And most of the time, though, I like that the filmmakers trusted him with his themes and let him go with those. Strong score. I'm looking forward to hearing it again.
Me too. I actually, as a Star Wars collector, I will buy it anyways, but I'm really looking forward to listening to it. I just wanted to hear whether you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we want to get into before we go into spoilers?
Don't think so. I think we really want to discuss the spoilers.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers!
Spoiler!
What did we think about seeing old faces from different movies in this film? I was surprised at how many cameos we got.
I never
Without being forced on you. I think all the cameos worked really well. Right up to the guys.
Everything was appropriate.
I have the death sentence in... How many systems is it?
12.
Seeing Ponda Baba. Out of all of them, that might have been the most abrupt.
Is that Walrus Man's name or the
Walrus
guy
Man is Ponda Baba.
Yeah.
You actually know
Dr.
these names.
Evazan, I think, is the other.
Wow, that's
you are
impressive.
correct, Darren.
I have read about 10 expanded universe novels, and that was back in the 90s when it was focused on original trilogy stuff, so I do know a fair number of those guys' names.
I recognize them as well, and I pointed them out to the wife. It's like, that's the guy that fucks with Luke in the canteen.
And there might have been a few that I missed, too. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Well, and there were even nods to the Star Wars Rebels cartoon. You can actually see the ship from it in two of the space battles.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
You can hear one of the characters' last names announced over the base they're looking for.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I think there's about 5 or 6 nods to the Star Wars Rebels universe, which is really...
Wow, that's cool. I noticed 0 of them.
I only found out about them afterwards.
Okay.
So on my next viewing, I will be looking for them. So
it's tough to get some of those because you're so into the movie that some of these things, unless they're right in your face, you're not going to notice it.
Oh, yeah, the subtle things. You need to watch the movie 10 times to pick up on some of those.
Exactly. Like,
for me, I loved, like you said, you've got the Ponda Baba, you've got obviously the big one, which we'll get into, but even little subtle things that if you don't, well, I guess it depends on how much you know A New Hope, but that trench run scene where you see the original rogue leader and you see some of the original pilots, it gives you chills where you're like, yes, like it just kind of brings that forward.
Were they reusing shots or did they find some old material, and were these takes that we've never seen
It looked
before?
to me like they pulled either footage, right out of A New Hope or unused takes from A New Hope.
Right. The lines were similar, but it looked like a different take for a few of them.
I'm sure they redubbed the voices in a lot of the cases too, but
from what I
those worked a lot better than some of the other
so much fun though
nods.
when you see those guys. They work compared to what other nods?
The digital humans.
And I agree with him.
Really?
We're talking about the big one. I think I love the inclusion. Well, we're in spoilers, so we can say it, but I love the inclusion of Grand Moff Tarkin. It wasn't Grand Moff at this point, but kind of creeped me out. Like it did not always carry through.
Is that right?
Like the digital Mon Calamari, the digital aliens, digital robots, they work fantastic. Maybe that's because we're not used to seeing them in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
But a digital, he looked like he was still, better than a character in Robert Zemeckis' A Christmas Carol.
Or Polar Express.
But he still looked too digitally to me.
See, for me, he looked fine. I noticed more of it Princess Leia.
For sure.
She was definitely the one that stuck out to me, but I thought for the most part, Tarkin, he looked fine. Like
some shots,
there were some shots where you can see it, but
most shots, I wasn't sold on him.
What point? Peter Cushing is back from the dead in the movie.
I'm
amazed by that. I'm sorry. I just think, when I was expecting, when I saw his back, I thought that's probably all we're going to get. Yeah. And then he turns around and he starts speaking. I'm like, Peter Cushing's alive. And Grand Moff Tarkin's in this movie. And then he's in it again. And he's in it again. And I'm like, he's got more screen time in this, I think, than he has in A New Hope.
He might, yeah.
I was amazed at that. And it did work for me. This technology is only going to get better and better.
True.
You know?
Like, I didn't mind them.
I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah.
Personally.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Wow, I was amazed.
No, so was I. I liked them for the most part. There was a couple of times where I was kind of like, okay, you can see it. Just because I also knew that it was CGI. Like, I wonder if how many people went into this maybe not even realizing who he is. Did they even notice
possible.
it? It's just because we know who he is.
Honestly, I brought it up with my wife, and she's not a Star Wars fan. And I said, yeah, well, the Leia didn't bother me as much, or it bothered me more than the Peter Cushing. And she said, who's that? Well, Grand Moff Tarkin. Who's that? Well, he's the main villain other than the main villain. It's like the guy was always in black. I was like, well, no, like he was like in the gray Imperial uniform, like the old guy. She's like, yeah, always in black. Wasn't he always in black? No. Anyways, long story short, she didn't know that it was even a digital character. So I guess it works for some people.
So the technology is there, unless you're
picking it apart a little bit. You're seeing how good is it maybe.
And I also thought Princess Leia worked too.
I
loved it. I wanted her to turn around after Grand Moff Tarkin. Of course, you're just like, don't cheat me now. Bring everybody back.
This is going to surprise you, but I don't even think that sequence was needed. Darren and I talked about this. I think the movie's about Rogue One. Once you know the fate of your main cast of characters, I felt it maybe was a little forced to have that direct handoff to A New Hope.
I thought she shouldn't have been there. Like, you're putting her right in the battle. What they should have done, instead of like handing it personally to her and she runs away, it should have been transmitted to her ship. Because the fact that she's running away from this battle, so in the next one, they're like, you took some classified information. Like, no, we were just on a diplomatic mission. We saw you escape from this fucking ship and you're running away. We know that you were here.
That's one of Ivan's quibbles. I will agree with that. I had the same problem with that.
And that might be one of the reasons I felt like, and don't get me wrong, because one of my favorite scenes maybe in all of Star Wars occurred in the sequence where I think maybe not necessarily had to be there, but that Darth Vader scene where he's just a killing machine.
Oh my god.
It's like, he's finally the threat that you always knew he was,
that you heard about. And that's what, after that scene, I'm like, why have they not made a Darth Vader movie where they show him hunting down Jedi, being the badass? Show him becoming the biggest monster in the universe.
I always thought Revenge of the Sith was going to be a big chapter of that film, and disappointed we didn't see that.
Yeah, so that's what I when I saw that scene, when they show him, he's just ripping through those soldiers. And I want to see a whole movie of him doing that.
And you can see the panic and desperation on those soldiers' face, like just frantic, like the minute you hear the and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Kind of like, did you notice this? And maybe some people didn't, but remember that pilot that defected and he was in front of Forrest Whitaker's character and he put on that thing and he breathed? The guy almost shit himself because I think that he was like, he sounds exactly like Darth Vader.
Yeah, I know.
Right, there were allusions to that.
Yeah. That's how he shows the fear people have of Darth Vader.
He's got the metal legs too.
Yeah. And he just heard of that breathing sound, and it sounded exactly the same. And the guy started like shaking. So to me, that was
twisted and evil.
Yeah.
As far as the ending, for my take, I both also agree and disagree. I really wanted Leia to turn around. Yes. And then when she did, it would have been better just to see her continuously from behind. But
Carrie Fisher would love that one.
In the slave costume.
Well, I'm sure she'd rather be seen as a real self than the corny digital self. But I will say that given the fate of the characters in this film, I think you needed more of an upbeat ending.
That's exactly what I was going to say, right? They have to show
so
you.
It kind of had to happen.
But they could have shown her ship receiving the transmission instead of being right in the thick of battle.
Well, also, Star Wars opens right in the thick of battle, and it kind of really helps the transition that it's such a continuation of the battle.
Everything works except for what Ivan said is the one line, which we're on a diplomatic mission. No, you're not. You just saw you in the middle of this big battle.
Yeah.
Did he lay eyes on Leia, though?
No, but it's the exact same ship. They knew what ship they were chasing.
They change the numbers on it.
I don't think it's going to bother.
They have that
In
button like in
hyperdrive.
James Bond where he just flips
Exactly,
the
yeah, they
license
flipped it,
plates.
Can't you guys wait for this movie to be released at home and watch this back to back with the New
Oh,
Hope?
hell
I almost
yeah.
watched
Yeah.
New Home when I got home.
I actually turned it on and checked out a few moments just to see for the visual quality, and
Yeah.
just, my God, I cannot stress how impressed I was with how seamless it's going to seem. Besides the tone, this is the prequel that I always wanted.
Yeah.
For Star Wars to set
Absolutely.
the events up, and
My curiosity,
Can't wait.
just that Darth Vader killing machine sequence. I'm wondering if you watched Rogue One and Star Wars back to back, is it going to be jarring seeing him so nimble and agile, killing all these rebel soldiers, and then having that very wooden fight with Obi-Wan at the end?
the only way I really think the Obi-Wan fight really works now in Star Wars is because there's the history of the character, and we maybe think he's not going to go all out on him, because it is a lame fight, the lamest in all of the movies.
And it is a little bit nitpicky on the Ivan level, I understand that, but it's just one of those things.
This is
that
just going to be a set thing now in these podcasts.
Any nitpick will be, well, I'm not quite Ivan, but I am going to nitpick for a second.
Because I would say that he's kind of nitpicked some stuff more than me on this one.
For sure. It's all in good fun, but I really enjoyed it, and the more I see it, probably it's almost like when I saw The Force Awakens, and there were the little things that the first time you're seeing it, like the Grand Moff Tarkin thing in this one, where you know he's dead, so you're analyzing like how good does that look. On a second watch, that's not what I'm going to be paying attention to, because I know it's there. Just like you said, Ron, knowing that character is in there, that's going to be good enough for me. So these will probably be little nitpicks that are ignored on repeat viewings.
Right. And as far as the characters go, you're right. Daisy Ridley, that's her name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Force Awakens. Like I've told you guys, I think she was the find of the century. I mean,
Yeah,
she
made
carries that
herself
movie
a
on
movie
her back.
star in 5 minutes.
Absolutely. So no performances are as good as hers. I'll agree with you on that. But that's not taking away anything that we see from these guys. I think Felicity Jones.
Well, they're good
rocks it.
performances,
I
and-
think she's terrific.
Yeah.
Alan Tudyk as the robot, the
Yeah.
voice of the robot.
K2SO?
He's my favorite
Great.
droid in the Star Wars of all the Star Wars movies. He's
Really?
awesome.
The new C-3PO?
He's
We had the new R2.
C-3PO with fucking attitude.
Attitude.
Yeah.
He'll actually bitch slap
He
you.
reminded me a lot of Drax. Is that the
Yeah.
just in his
He
just
says whatever
total
comes out of his
ingenuity?
mouth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's terrific. Forrest Whitaker isn't in it as much as I thought he would be.
I thought he'd be in it more actually.
Yeah,
Kind of
because
a
I
little
thought that
surprised.
he would be going with them and fighting in.
And I also know he is one of the more familiar characters that's from the animated show, isn't he?
Clone Wars. He
Yeah.
was introduced in Clone
I had heard that,
Wars.
yeah, he was from the canon anyway, so I thought he'd have a big role.
Oh, I don't
Very
remember.
much lesser known. Like when I had heard about it, and I love Clone Wars, I had to look him up and go, oh yeah, right, that guy.
And
Oh,
what
I'm
do we
gonna have to
think
do that
of
too now.
Donnie Yen's character?
I liked him, the blind guy.
Emu, Sarah. These names, you're right, Darren. Luke, Leia, and Han are much easier
Ray,
than
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jin Erso, Cassian Andor, Sherrit Imwe, and Baze Malbus. Those are the two guys played by Donnie Yen and Wen Yang. They're living on Jeddah, I guess, and they are protectors of the
temple.
Wills. Is that it?
He was the protectors of that Jedi temple on the planet.
Right.
But then once he got destroyed, they even mentioned
And didn't
that in
we
the
hear
movie,
some
they just
sort of
kinda
something
come
else
like
about the
wonders.
Wills? Some sort of Jedi text?
That was brought up a couple times in the film, and my only previous knowledge of it is in the novelization of
Exactly,
Star
that's where
Wars
I've heard.
A New Hope. It's called something like Star Wars from the Journal of the Wills or something like that. So I don't even know if George Lucas knew what the Wills was. He just thought it was kind of a cool sounding thing to put in the beginning of the novelization. But they're obviously building that additional connection there.
Some
Star
sort
Wars.
of Jedi handbook or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I
have,
really don't know.
Well, they did come out with like a Jedi handbook, like a diary, and a Sith one. I have them both at home.
Yeah, I've seen them, but nothing to do with Wills, though. Is it?
No, but I mean, there's different bunch of texts. Like even the expanded universe, there's a bunch of different temples with their own secrets on a bunch of different planets.
But yeah, this makes it seem like the Wills is something pretty big and important in Jedi lore. It sounds like they're going to build it to something in
Hopefully, they
coming
do
movies.
expand on it. Yeah.
Donnie Yen seems about as close as we get to a Jedi character representing,
absolutely.
the
For sure.
spirit of the Force in this movie.
because he's blind and it's
And there's one line
it's
that was
guiding him.
brilliant when they were taking
When
him
they throw
away
the
and
sack.
they put a hood over it.
I thought he was great, and his companion, Baze Malbus, is the character. I thought they were kind of a good duo. They
were
worked
great.
well together.
I liked them more than the main two characters, I'd say.
I guess the other thing we should mention with this movie is the nice thing that I thought, with it being a standalone, we know that there's no continuing story. So with these characters, anything's up for grabs. Right. The stakes are much higher in this film when it comes to who's going to make it out.
Because didn't Donnie Yen actually spoil that in one of the panels? He had accidentally said something about his character's demise.
Right. I will not be in Rogue 2.
I didn't know that. No.
Watching that movie, that gave
a little more.
Gave more stakes to the film, and I was
for sure.
I thought that those guys were great. They worked really well, like you said. I did like the first two characters. I thought it showed the main rebel guy, which I still don't know his name right now. It showed even though they're the rebels, they're fighting for the good. It's war.
Oh my God!
Certain things
there's some dark moments in this. There's some things that,
like when he executes
Han Solo and Luke
guy.
Skywalker were never allowed to do in the other movies.
Like he executes a guy, just be like, I can't risk this guy being captured, right?
He definitely shot first.
Yeah. And I like that because they're actually showing, because this is, they're the good guys, but they have to do whatever they have to do to beat.
He has that great line later where, late in the film, when he's saying, I've been fighting since I was 6 years old. Yeah. I've been doing this my whole life. I've lost everything. Like, the stakes are very high for these characters. And,
like he gets
all they want is to make a difference. I love that.
And they called Forrest Whitaker's faction the extremists, so I'd like to see more of what they were up to.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we get a little bit of that with the scene with hideous.
I kind of wish there were more consequences to that, because the pilot came out of that pretty unscathed.
Not bad.
In the beginning, they showed him kind of fuzzy, but then he got over that pretty well.
Did you recognize that actor, by the way?
Oh yeah, I've seen him
from Riz Ahmed. He's the guy from The Night Of. Yeah, he was really good in this movie.
I've seen him in a few things. I kept trying to remember where. I haven't had a chance to look him up, but I saw him in a number of things, and that kept bugging me. I'm like, where do I recognize this guy from? I've seen him somewhere. I definitely thought the Jin was good, and then when she was mad at the guy, like, you were gonna assassinate my father, then had that little back and forth. It's like you can kind of get from both their perspectives. You get it from hers because you're trying to kill my father, a guy that he did what he did, but he's also did it because he wanted to put in something into the Death Star that can be exploited to be destroyed,
which the rest of the characters don't know or understand that.
Exactly.
And which was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I liked how much people didn't believe that and didn't want to buy into that. That was
and really especially when you look at the fact, like, if these people he thinks his entire family's dead, why would he continue making the Death Star, right? Why would he do it? But then you'll realize it's because he knew that the work was going to be done without him.
So the only option available to him.
Yeah. This was his way. And then, but you also see it from the other guy's side. It's like, your father built the most powerful weapon in the universe. I know he's your father, but seriously, this guy cannot be allowed to live.
And a lot of people die because of it.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of Robert Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah.
This man with such responsibilities. They wanted to kick him out of the Manhattan Project, and he was like, no, if someone needs to be here to steer the ship, no matter how horrible it is, right? Yeah, I love that idea and how it fixes the mistake of Episode 4, which is, why would the Empire build a battle station like this that could be so easily right
over the port?
It's brilliant. It's you watch those movies back to back, and you'll never think of that again.
Right.
Yeah,
it's great.
I agree. I absolutely love that. The minute they mentioned it, it kind of, not to take us off tangent, but reminded me of kind of the flaws from Man of Steel and how they tried to use those flaws in the follow-up movie to kind of as a plot point, and I felt this did that brilliantly.
Yeah. I agree.
It was so effective, and like you said, now you're never gonna say, "Geez, it's such a plot contrivance to have this all-powerful weapon," but no, there's that one quote-unquote minor flaw. And then just to go back, because it's on my mind, the one line that really didn't land to me and kind of almost took me out of the movie a little bit was the line from Vader where he was choking that one guy.
Yeah,
says,
I know.
Be careful not to choke on your ambition.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little too on the nose.
Yeah, that's something Anakin would have said.
I don't think we want one-liners from Vader.
Yeah, that was... I mean, in the moment, whatever, that's fine. I just...
It's a little spin-off apology accepted, Captain Nita. A little bit of that, but, a little...
But that was a great line, and this is...
not so great. Right?
But for me, there was a few parts in the movie where, they're fighting, all these things are going on, a few people decide to throw out one-liners. I
didn't find that many quips in this movie.
I didn't find a lot.
There was a few.
Most of them came from the droid, and I enjoyed everything he said, I think.
The droid ones, they explained it.
Yeah.
He just says what's on his mind because it was a fault when they did the rewriting, so I was like, it's fine. But there were some parts where the humans were saying stuff, and I'm just, seriously.
I'd say for humor-wise, the only thing that didn't land for me was just that, personally.
I don't remember, but on second viewing, I might find some of those lines.
But let's get into Vader. I love certain things, how, as much as we've discussed how much there's such vitriol for the prequels, I loved how they still brought elements of the prequels into this.
I never thought I'd get goosebumps seeing Jimmy Smits, but I did. Yeah. And when he first walked on, wow, did that excite me.
That, and then the fact that Vader, his palace, if we want to call it that, is on Mustafar.
Still.
Right, still stuck there.
Yeah.
That shows he hasn't really gotten over.
He's got some demons inside.
Right.
Even though in that movie they took him off the planet, they were building up on a ship.
Well, but that was
Home Sweet Home.
Him. But
right.
Kind of that place where Anakin died and Vader was created.
Right. And we get that little bit in Empire of his scars and the damage to his body. But in this movie, wow, we really see what a mess.
And that's where you hear the theme from the episode 4 when he's floating in the back to tank there. Bum, 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 bum,
and you almost get to the point, like, does he live in this tank when he's not,
like, how much time can he spend
the
out
Empire?
Of the tank?
Is he so haunted by what he's done? He's just, he'd rather just.
Or is it just really relaxing? Like, it's like a hot tub for him.
Could be.
Yeah, he just enjoys it. Has a drink and sits back in the back to tank.
Well, he's still healing, and that, I think, shows exactly how much healing he still has to do. Like, they show a glimpse, not the back to tank, but just the fact that even in Empire, they show him in his throne room and helmet off, and you only see him from the back, and then you see the helmet lower.
But he was that in kind of sealed off thing that he was without his helmet.
Yeah, but a sealed chamber that was maybe the intent of that. I mean, sure, it looked freaking cool, but it was likely
some hermetically sealed,
which you don't really think about it at that point. But once you saw how badly he was wrecked before, because you never really understand the extent of his injuries in the original movies, you just know that he got injured. But then when you watch episode 3, when you see, it's like, oh, he got really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually, speaking of expanded universe, there's a book collection called the Dark Lord Trilogy, and it's got 3 books all to do with Vader, and one is him becoming Vader. Then there's, it starts with Revenge of the Sith, and basically the whole story arc shows his relationship with Obi-Wan, then him becoming Vader, and then it ends with him actually on the hunt and whatnot. So it's a really effective book. But one of the things I loved about it, just something that never came across in the movie, and how could it, but it talked about how much he despised being in that armor, because he went from he developed that fighting style as a Jedi, free-flowing and jumping all over the place, and now it's just so cumbersome and restricted and mechanical, and I thought that was really, it's actually made me think differently.
One real arm left, and all of the other limbs are ropes.
Was that the one with Darth Maul when they brought him back?
No.
See, the one I remember, one was, there's like a cult of the Sith that never really looked at Anakin as a true successor or an apprentice, because he was tainted by being a former Jedi, and they actually resurrected Darth Maul.
Yeah, there's nothing I hate more about the Clone Wars series than the return of Darth Maul. It's just, I know everyone loves Darth Maul and he returns, and I know you're talking about something different than the Clone Wars. But
this is like, he wasn't that spider thing that they did in those. This was actually like full on, and they get into a duel. So they fight, they go, whatever, and then what happens at one point, like Darth Maul is winning, he captures Darth Vader, and it's like, what can you hate enough to defeat me? And then he goes, me, and puts the lightsaber through himself to stab Darth Maul to kill him to win the battle. Once he became Darth Vader, with all the decisions he's made, he hates himself more than anything else.
Once again, he's got some demons.
Yeah, which drives his...
Were you guys expecting to see him in this movie this much? I wasn't sure how much of Vader we were going to get. Maybe briefly and just, in passing. But
I was hoping.
I was surprised by how much we got of everybody in this movie, including dead people.
But like I said, once I saw that one scene, I was just blown away. The Darth Vader one was just amazing.
Yeah, it's almost like the apology to that. At the end of Sith, it's for everybody who think Darth Vader's whiny. You don't watch him. Yeah, it's the most kick-ass scene maybe this year in movies. When you're like, it's only 90 seconds. But it's 90 seconds of just pure awesome.
Yeah. And I think they included him just enough. Like, there wasn't too much. They gave you glimpses of kind of where he was at.
Yeah, it's not his film, so they didn't overdo it.
Right, but he still comes across as being that ever-present threat. Mm-hmm. And I had no expectation one way or another how much he was going to be in it, just because I tried to avoid as much. I actually wasn't happy I saw the trailer that showed him. I didn't want to even know that much. But I was pleased with the amount he was in it, personally.
We haven't really discussed it. What did you guys think of the main villain of this movie?
That's a good point.
Ben Mendelsohn? Yeah, I thought he was really good. I just love the fact that he's been working his whole life to get this Death Star up up and running and everything. And the second he does, Grand Moff Tarkin goes, "Thank you, you're fired."
Yeah. I think that he was ever conflicted. He was just very ambitious.
Yeah.
And he was ambitious, but he also wasn't suited for his role. Like, he wasn't a military guy. And you especially see it in that battle scene when he's ordering people around. He's not really thinking. He's just kind of reacting what's going on. He's not really thinking ahead. He just shows his inexperience as a military leader.
He'd work better as a Gestapo colonel or something, but not necessarily a military leader.
That's funny. Some people have said the opening scene of this movie is a little bit like the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, yeah.
With Hans Landa, the interrogation and stuff. Yeah. So, good role. He won't be back either.
Enjoyed him, yeah. But there was some parts of that you knew they were coming. Certain things, like soon as Grand Moff Tarkin said, "Send us into hyperspace," I knew what the thing was going to end. And then when they're doing the whole broadcasting thing, it's going to come down to that guy with the girl up top. And I never understood the way they do this. Might be nitpicking. I was kind of thought it's silly just from these movies, the way they design some things. Like, why underneath the dish is the thing to upload, yet to reposition the dish, you have to go way the fuck out here.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, because it brought me back to in Star Wars with Obi-Wan turning off the tractor beam. Like, why do they put these things in the hardest spots in the world to get? These engineers need to be fired.
Did you ever watch the Family Guy Star Wars episodes where the guys are standing near one of those edges? They're like, all I asked for was this railing right here, so we can fall 100 feet to our death. Do you know what they said? They were going to be leaning on it all day. It's like, I just don't want to fall and die.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But just to go back to that scene, it's funny because the minimal trailer stuff
here
that
we
I
go.
saw, that scene was completely different because the trailer you see, she's on that walkway and all of a sudden a TIE fighter comes out.
It's such a great shot.
That wasn't even in the film, was it?
You're waiting for it.
It must have been re-editing or...
Absolutely. As soon as that moment happened, my mind started going, okay, with the reshoots, what was the original ending of this movie? And there's two shots that just don't really make sense. One shot of Jin running on the beach with the AT-AT battle and everything going on. Obviously that's, there's two stories going on at the end of the movie. She's up on the ledge trying to get these plans, send them off while they're fighting on the beach. There's shots of her running in the beach holding the plans.
That's true.
Really?
I didn't even think of that.
So that would mean
has some alternate.
That would mean the ending would mean she doesn't send the plans or something goes wrong. She has to go back down, run across the beach, send the plans a different way. So the ending was substantially reshot, and that TIE fighter shot probably has a lot to do with it.
It was amazing the way he did it.
My mind is so all over the place with this movie because, like you said at the beginning, Ron, like there's so much to digest. Like little things, little throwbacks. Did anybody else think that the gateway to that shield looked like the outer ring to a Trade Federation ship?
Yeah.
I want to say, Ivan, you brought up the scene where Obi-Wan goes around the thing and deactivates So, I mean, of course, the stormtroopers in that scene, the one says to the other, "Oh, you hear about the new T-16? They say it's quite a thing, they say." And this one, you hear two stormtroopers talking, and the one says to the other one, "Oh, you hear they're finally getting rid of the T-15? Oh, that thing is so obsolete."
Absolutely. That's what I mean.
That was great.
I picked that one up too, and I think about all the ones we must have missed. Right? Yeah. So this movie is going to be so rich on repeated viewings. Yeah. They just knocked it out of the park. Other visuals that I loved, just specifically, were some of the shots with the X-Wings in the rain and the glowing engines at night coming in. Yeah. God, that was beautiful. Yeah. In one of the sand battles, you see just for a brief second the glint of the sun off the windshield of an X-Wing fighter, and just like these little touches don't need to be there, but they are. And for me, it's just this movie has a lot of love put into it. Just these guys really cared about making a really, really good movie.
Yeah, the battle sequences are absolutely mesmerizing, just insane, incredible, fantastic.
Although I will say there was a couple of times I'm like the things like how they disabled the destroyer.
Oh, awesome!
It was, but the thing is though, it's like, when you look at the original movies and now, it's like they have better technology now than they had in like the later movies. Like they could.
Do you mean they're crunching the two together?
That was awesome, but I remember how they dropped those bombs. It was almost like EMPs to turn off all their electronics.
That's right.
But that's whatever. But I mean, it was just awesome. Like
it looked great, but I agree.
Hampered by the technology of the time. Sorry, go ahead.
That actually brought to mind one minor quibble I had where, and obviously I'm not a physicist, so maybe this is completely possible, but just the fact that this little ship could impact, I thought it was just going to batter right through.
I thought they were going to invade the ship.
Me too, but the fact that it had enough force to completely shift
In the real world, you see tugboats moving big battleships, right?
That's
space
what I
is
was
space,
thinking
right?
Too,
right.
So.
True, but that's, in space, it works differently because it doesn't matter how big that thing is. It's in space. It's still just floating there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I thought it worked. I thought that was great.
It was an amazing visual. Just in the moment, I was just thinking, I don't know.
Yet me nitpicking that weapon in episode 7 is being too far.
These to be
the computer programmed like that. It would launch the things and hit the planets as they rotated properly.
Yeah.
They have computers on
with a sun that's drained that no other exists. So it's like one-shot weapon, whatever.
It's a fantasy
So every
film.
time they want to do it, they just like dig out another planet. Yeah, whatever.
If need be. That's they didn't need a third Death Star in episode 7. That's my big problem.
Yeah.
Come up with a different weapon.
Were there any visuals that you guys really responded to?
More than anything, for me, it was the mix of cultures and alien races on Jeddah. I love just trying to soak up every inch of the screen when they were in those cities. It's fantastic looking.
It felt lived in. Like it felt like a lived in Star Wars universe for me.
Easily, a cousin to Mos Eisley or you name it. There's also
visuals.
a shot in the trailer of like a bird's eye view shot of the carved out Jedi mountain that you don't see in the movie.
Oh, right. That's not in the movie.
Different bird's eye shot,
Yeah, that must be the home planet of the Jedis.
And it might be mentioned in some of the cartoon shows because they do delve into more of the Jedi mythology.
I'm sure we could look up pretty easily where the Jedi originated.
And is this supposed to be the only planet that has the Kyber crystal?
I know
it's mined on different planets in the cartoon series.
It's very scarce. That much I know, but how many planets have it? I'm not sure.
For final thoughts on the movie, then? I'm just so impressed with this entry. And if we have to get a Star Wars movie every year, God, I hope they're all like this. I mean, if this is setting the bar for where they have to go with all the solo movies, no pun intended, I'm really excited. If this is the care that they're taking and this is the product, that they want to release to us, I'll take Star Wars every year.
You should get like a fan, but get them to make a Darth Vader one when he just... You would think like a movie like that would make them huge money. Like you would think that that's something that would be a priority, even over a Han Solo movie.
But
I'd much rather see Darth Vader being a badass.
The problem is Anakin's story is really the central story of the canon, right? Of the actual film. So
but
to step out of that,
and to make him
really
the main character,
outside of it, right?
He's a villain, and it's tough to make a movie where the villain is the central character.
We would all love just a Darth Vader movie of him kicking ass and going after and killing all the Jedis, but
you can make it a good movie, even showing his kind of struggle with everything, coming to deal with.
It'd be hard to do that without derailing what you've already told in the other films, I think.
True, but I don't know. I would like to because
we might get
to
one.
see him
being
more lightsaber battles because he's still going to be hunting down some Jedi that survived Order 66. I want to see that.
Right.
You might. We might. I wouldn't be surprised if
I wouldn't mind seeing an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie standalone film.
That's one of the rumors.
Yeah,
they've talked about Ewan McGregor reprising the role.
But then again, with this movie, these were all brand new characters, so it doesn't necessarily, we don't have to see new characters.
I want to see something new
right.
I want to see something from 2,000 years before the events.
One idea that was pitched a few years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
One idea that was pitched by Zack Snyder a few years ago, I thought was a fantastic idea. It was kind of doing a Seven Samurai movie with Jedis.
I like the idea too, but just not with Zack Snyder at the helm.
Absolutely
Hand
not.
it off to another director.
No, he would never get that gig anymore.
Give him a production credit or something.
Right, and I don't know if that was his idea. Maybe it was just floating around, but that would be a cool idea.
Story, right? But
they have a whole universe to explore.
First foot forward, it was definitely a success.
Because there were Sith wars way back when there used to be armies before the rule of two came in.
Yep.
You can even bring in the fact when the guy that decided to create the rule. I mean, you can easily make these movies as long as you keep up the quality, right? Because I would like to see some of those older stuff too. Even like Darth Plagueis, all that stuff. There's just so much.
Darth Syphilis. There's Darth Tetanus. There's so many potential Sith villains out there.
Get James Franco to play him for some reason. I don't know why. Paul, what are your final thoughts on the film?
The more we talk about it, the more I'm inching towards using the L word for it, but I'll reserve that until...
this movie's so easy to love.
Yeah, I know, but I think it just goes back to the fact that I there's so much to absorb, and I'm not used to not knowing so much about the universe that it's a little disorienting, and I have every confidence that on a second viewing I'll just absolutely love it.
I'm already there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was everything that I was hoping it to be and more, and got so many little moments that there was great payoff for. And yeah, if you like Star Wars even a little bit, get your ass in the theater.
Yeah, I'll definitely be seeing it again in the theater. I can't wait. Darren, final thoughts?
I'm always more reluctant to use the L word than you guys. I'll use Force Awakens as a case in point. I walked out of that loving it, and each subsequent viewing, I'm bothered a little bit more by how much it relies on the previous film. So I don't want to be too excited about this, but can't wait to see it again, and I will for sure. So I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10 right now. Who knows how much that might fluctuate later.
What does it take for you to love a movie? 8.2?
9.
Really? 9 is a love?
9 is a love.
Right.
8 is very
How many
good.
movies get a 10?
Not many.
Not many. Couple dozen?
Not as many as for you.
Right. I've seen a lot more movies. All right. Let's move on to the Rant and Rave segment. Paul, why don't you go first?
Okay, just to keep the Star Wars theme going, a friend of mine in Vancouver recently gave me this trade paperback, which for those who don't follow comics is just a collection of comics. It's called Star Wars Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and the backstory of this is it was originally a novel written by Alan Dean Foster, who was commissioned to co-write the original Star Wars novelization for the original film. So that came out in 1976, and as well as commissioned to help write that, he was commissioned by Lucas to pen a follow-up story to A New Hope. And Lucas wanted it to be a very cheap story so that if Star Wars wasn't the hit that obviously eventually became, he'd have a very cheap sequel that he could put out and maybe get a second chance. So that was issued in 1976, and then in 1996, 20 years later, they decided to make a comic series out of it. So I decided why not give it a try. It's kind of the lost sequel, so to speak. Overall, it's pretty uneven because it's kind of a glimpse into a Star Wars universe that we're just so unfamiliar with. Like the main characters are Luke, Leia, 3PO, and R2. The rest are just a kind of strange collection of characters. Like there's one old lady who's got some Force sensibilities, but she's not a Jedi, and some kind of guerrilla type characters. So it's kind of a mishmash of themes and kind of uneven storytelling. If you're a Star Wars fan, I'd say it's kind of neat to see what could have been and thankfully wasn't. Just to give you a general overview of the story, Luke and Leia, they're flying in separate ships to, she's got a meeting that she's supposed to go to on this one planet as a diplomat and try to convince them to join the rebellion. She has troubles with her ship. They end up crashing on this mining planet where the Empire are mining kyber crystals. Well, you find out that it's actually Darth Vader is looking for this one specific crystal, which is the kyber crystal. And the key to this gemstone is that it really opens your abilities with the Force, makes you more attuned with the Force, and really amplifies your abilities. So, of course, Vader wants to get his hands on this to become even more powerful than he is. And so basically it's Han and Leia trying to get off this planet and also keep Vader from getting this all-powerful crystal.
I read the book years ago and rather enjoyed it. If I recall correctly, it's the first book in the Star Wars universe that was not based on one of the original films. And
Yep, yeah.
I don't remember it well, but I remember enjoying it.
It's considered by many people absolutely the first book in the expanded universe.
Was the book released before Empire came out?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was, and so now it's not considered obviously well, I guess it is kind of a direct sequel to Star Wars, but it's kind of a filler adventure between Empire and Star Wars. So the parts in the comic and book where it's kind of a little bit romantic or whatever, they pass it off as kind of brother sister love a little bit. Like there's obviously no kissing or whatever, but you know, that romantic tension, they just put it off as sibling rivalry a little bit more. So it's interesting. It's definitely worth checking out if you are a Star Wars fan. I wouldn't say I loved it. I wouldn't use the L word by any means, but it's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting to see the glimpse into the past and what could have been if Star Wars wasn't the mega blockbuster that it turned out to be. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then the second thing I have is I finally watched Hateful Eight. I might be the last person on the planet to see this.
Took about a year.
Yeah, it took about a year, and had Ron's Blu-ray for about 4 months of that year. So really enjoyed it. Some fantastic performances in there. Yeah, just
you're a fan of Tarantino's stuff anyways, right? Most of his films?
For sure. I still haven't seen Django Unchained, which I really want to. Just can never seem to block off 3 hours to do it. Yeah, really glad I finally checked it out. I can't say that this is my favorite Tarantino film, but it definitely sets a mood, a tone, keeps you guessing throughout the whole thing, trying to figure out the whodunit aspect of it. But yeah, thoroughly entertaining. I really liked it.
Yeah, he's amazing at... Not a lot happens in this movie, but it's never boring for such a long film.
2 hours and 40 minutes or so.
He's just a master of tone and setting atmosphere, and I love the movie. I think
there was tension the entire time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And making it feel kind of...
But it's hard to sustain that for such a long time.
And you often don't know where the tension comes from. You're thinking, why am I so unsettled right now? And you don't even know, but it's there.
Kind of a claustrophobic feel to it because you got a tiny wood cabin with all these characters in it, and just the diversion of attention and how you've got things going on seemingly in front of your eyes and you're not noticing it, and then you're guessing and second guessing yourself as to what exactly is going on. So
it's very good.
Sure. And standout performances by everybody.
Oh yeah,
fantastic,
absolutely great. And yeah, there's a lot of N-bombs in there, which is something you don't see in a lot of movies.
This might be, out of all of Tarantino's films, this one might be the most justified in using that language. It's right after the Civil War. Yep. Race is a huge subtext of this film. So it didn't bother me quite as much as it would. You haven't seen Django yet.
It might have been a little over the top. But...
all overboard on that one.
But he's also been always very liberal with the use of that word.
Yeah, I think he thinks he's black.
Yeah.
In a certain way, and he has a certain allowance.
Or he's trying to take the power away from the word, is what he was saying in some interviews. Like,
sure.
I don't know.
There's an argument to be made on both sides of it, and I
do remember when I watched it, I'm like, holy hell. Like,
there's a lot in that.
Yeah,
not as bad as when you're watching The Wire for 5 seasons. I'm just like, I think I've heard that word enough in those 5 seasons that I'm like, can't be shocked by it anymore to complete the sense type, but still, yeah.
According to Tarantino, we only have 2 more films of his left before he retires.
So enjoy him while you can.
Right, finishing with 10.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if he sticks to it.
Yeah, can't go wrong with the Hateful Eight. We're all fans of that.
Yeah, liked it a lot.
Excellent. Ivan, what do you got?
I just got a couple of small things. I guess I recently watched Hardcore Henry. Have you guys heard of this movie?
Oh, yeah.
How is it? I've heard
first
of it.
person.
I wasn't sure how much I'd be able to sit through that first
person. I will say that it's very jarring because if you don't like the camera shaking in the Jason Bourne movies, then this one is much worse because it's all first person. You know, you don't really get to see the first person character doesn't even talk. So you never feel that it's all about everybody around them. Charlton Copley?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's first person throughout the entire film, right?
Yeah,
it never switches. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that why the main character doesn't speak? Because it's supposed to be the illusion that
well, I don't want to give you spoilers, I guess, as to reasons why.
Okay.
It's also kind of a sci-fi story.
Did you ever see the short film that was made first? That kind of...
No.
So those guys made a... guy or guys, I don't know who was all behind it, but they made a short film, like 5 minutes or so, and they were able to sell the idea of the feature based on that. And I've seen that short, and that's quite exciting. But
like it is exciting. Like it's very fast paced, but it can be very jarring. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you sit in there and the thing is moving so fast, you're like, "What the hell is going on?" Because it's so quickly, especially like some fight scenes, and because a lot of action, lot of action.
Would it appeal to someone who doesn't like to play first-person video games?
I'm not into them because I also find the first-person shooters, it's the motion sickness aspect of it.
That's what it seemed to me. The trailers from this seemed like a 90-minute of watching someone play like a first-person video
definitely
game. And I was like, how entertaining could that be?
Without going into spoilers, Charlton Copley, there's scenes with him when the way he's doing things, I was just blown away. I don't know. Can I go into spoilers?
You probably shouldn't.
But there's just some parts that what he does, I was blown away. Just how seamless they made the whole thing go without telling you why it's impressive. But yeah, it was, if you can, it's one of those check your mind at the door action flicks.
Can't be very long either. It must be a pretty short film.
It was pretty
Try to maintain your interest for that long.
Yeah, a bit over an hour, under a minute 30, I think, if I remember. But the second thing, I just saw a documentary on Netflix about Atari and their E.T. game.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. Some things you kind of find out about the atmosphere of the place where they worked. I thought the guy that created the game was pretty damn honest about how this game came about to be known as the worst video game of all time. How, he made some games that were pretty big. His ego was kind of writing checks his ass couldn't cash. Yeah. And then the game that they put out was, they went from like, okay, it takes 6 months to put out a decent video game. You have 5 weeks. This is what came out.
You know what's frustrating about that game? And I played hours playing that game as a kid. And there were certain ways where you could get your character E.T. stuck in a pit. You'd fall in that pit and you'd run out of Reese's Pieces power. So you couldn't float out of the pit. But there was no timer on the game, so that's it. You're just for eternity, unless you turn the power off, you're stuck in that pit.
Yeah, and they discussed that. And
it was stupid.
It was like the first video game to have Easter eggs in there. You can find Indiana Jones in the game, and
oh wow, I didn't know that.
It's in the documentary.
I'd like to. What's the name of the documentary?
Oh, was it Atari Game Over?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I'd like to check that out.
It's a quick little watch, and it's about how they said that they dumped the video game in a desert.
Yeah.
So they actually went and dug it up. They had to get permission, and they actually dug it up to find them, and they found a bunch. Not as many as they claimed that were buried, but they also only had 1 day of digging to do. So it was interesting. All these people turned up. They didn't realize how popular this was, but all these people turned up when they heard about it. So all these people really excited. Every time there's something brought up, people are really...
It made the news. I remember when they were digging up the landfill trying to find them. There was several news stories I saw about it.
And how Atari basically went from being like this to down here. Well,
is that game kind of labeled as the thing that, brought them down?
It wasn't that. There was a few other things. They also sold, the company got bought out by some other people. There was a lot of stuff. They did kind of gloss over really quickly. They don't really touch on that part too much.
I always think there's a shot in Blade Runner where the ship is kind of going through the downtown area and there's a giant neon billboard sign of Atari. I'm just like...
If there's one way that movie wasn't prescient, it was...
Totally. Did you know about the kind of the curse of that movie? All the pitch companies that they showed in Blade Runner, everything that they advertised, all of those companies went bankrupt in the next 10 years. There's
really?
one for Pan Am, one for Atari. I think there's another 2 companies. And
no, I never heard that.
Yeah. When you watch that film, it's hilarious. None of those shots make sense anymore. But
it's kind of like when you watch I Am Legend and then have that Batman versus Superman sign in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I haven't had much of a chance to watch anything else. I do want to go next week, Assassin's Creed, because you got some really good reviews, so kind of looking forward to that. It might actually be the first video game movie that doesn't blow. That's it for me.
We'll see, yeah. It hasn't worked yet. I've heard that line before from a few other movies, and still there hasn't been a good one.
To see it than I am, that's for
But there were, I guess some people saw it early, and the feedback's been positive.
Something inspired Michael Fassbender to be involved, right?
Well, he's not the only one. Marion Cotillard's in it, and Jeremy Irons as well.
Oh, wow. Although Jeremy Irons has certainly been involved in some massive turkeys in his time. So.
True. But I don't know. From what I've seen of the movie, I want to see it. Even though I'm with video game movies' reputations, my levels aren't like, oh my god, I gotta watch this. But
you're a video game fan, right? So you've got some interest
and I'm a fan of the Assassin's Creed series because I like them. They're very much, it's the story's vast. I do like the whole ancient Italy, and you can climb all over basically any building in that, and it's beautifully designed. Like we actually see climb somewhere very high, and you look up on the horizon, the city just looks amazing. So I was a fan of the series. I do hope the movies are good, but I'm keeping my...
You're planning on seeing that next week?
Yeah, I think it comes out on Wednesday or something.
Okay, cool. Darren, what do you got to show us today?
All right, got a couple of things as well. I will kick off with this here CD. Have you guys ever seen the 1940, I think it came out, Thief of Baghdad? I don't bother asking
I own
you,
it,
but
yeah.
To me, it's just a sumptuous, grand, technicolor fantasy epic. It deserves to be seen as much as The Wizard of Oz does. So what they did here is, much like many scores of this vintage, not only are there no existing master tapes of the film recording, but even the written score is largely lost. So they had to do a fair bit of reconstruction, and then they made a brand new digital recording of the full film score with the City of Prague Philharmonic. This guy, James Fitzpatrick, has made a bit of a career for himself out of doing this. He's restored things like El Cid, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, Guns of Navarone. Anyway, so 2 CDs here of the full score, a bunch of bonus tracks. The amount of work that they put into this, and these things just don't sell very good. I mean, just you have to love it. I mean, to hire someone to spend months to reconstruct the score and hire out the orchestra and re-record it and so on. He's got a side career that is more lucrative, so he's able to pour a bit of money into these and then make it up elsewhere. But
so it's more of a passion project.
It's a passion project for sure. This one in particular was actually financed by another record label, Prometheus. His own label, Tadlow, would produce it in conjunction with Prometheus. But anyways, yeah, great score. It was one of Miklos Rosa's great breakout score decades before Ben-Hur and El Cid and King of Kings. And about 4 years before he did Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound, which I think was his first Oscar win. He's won 3 Oscars for Best Score. Sumptuous, thematically driven orchestral score that matches the visuals very much with a Middle Eastern twist to a lot of the music, or at least what Western ears think of as Middle Eastern music. I can't recommend it enough for fans of Golden Age film music. There are many websites you can buy it from, and links will be provided on our Facebook page as always.
Excellent. The Thief of Baghdad is fantastic.
Thief of Baghdad, yeah. I've long been considering buying that Criterion DVD and just been putting it off. And
it looks beautiful, yeah.
Thinking of getting it. Second thing I want to throw out that I watched recently was Eye in the Sky from director Gavin Hood. Ron is angry because obviously I've taken away one of his.
No.
Oh, okay. The way you turned your head, I thought you were like, oh, that's what I was going to talk about.
You got all the way through it?
I did. I liked it quite a bit.
Really?
Considering
I didn't care for it. No, I didn't really care for it.
Considering it's from Gavin Hood, whose films include
X-Men Origins,
Ender's
Wolverine.
Game and X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2 not very good movies at all. Rendition he also directed. I can't even remember if I saw Rendition, which if I did, it doesn't speak well to it.
And yet his first film was this really small independent African film called Tsotsi.
Tsotsi I like a lot, yeah.
Right, so he's all over the map.
And he's directed a lot of television, too.
Which one's Rendition?
Jake Gyllenhaal's in it.
Meryl Streep has to do with political interrogations. It didn't work for me either, that film.
But Eye in the Sky, which was, mainly I bring it up because I think it was the last film Alan Rickman shot. It was maybe his third last film to make it to the theaters, but Alan Rickman is in it. Ian Glenn we all know from Game of Thrones and Downton Abbey. Meryl Streep, fuck you.
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. I had Meryl Streep in my head.
The guy from Breaking Bad who played...
I can't remember his name. Plays Jesse.
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul, yeah, he's in it too. So I don't know. I thought it really worked as a strong thriller. I mean, it's not a masterpiece by any means. I liked its real-time aspect. I don't know. As far as these things go, in a not-quite-war situation, the way it kind of escalates up the chain of command was a little taken over the top in this film. But who knows? I mean, none of us have been in that real situation. We never really learn how it works.
I think my problem was I thought all the characters should have been a few degrees smarter than they were. And maybe they're trying to say that maybe these people in power aren't as bright as they should be.
Yeah. I thought the politicians came off the worst.
Totally.
Which is not surprising.
Absolutely.
Helen Mirren and Alan Rickman are great.
Yeah.
Their characters are great. Mm-hmm. What works the best about it is it's very effective.
Aaron Paul, his character.
It didn't
work for me.
Oh, I liked him.
I didn't buy his angst.
I can see it. I mean, the situation is a little ridiculous, but I can see being in that situation, I would react his way for sure. And the movie does give both sides of the war argument really well. It doesn't really take a side. It shows you that the guy who's upset about the potential for collateral damage, you understand. Who wouldn't be upset learning about the innocents who die in war? At the same time, Alan Rickman gives a great impassioned speech for why these things have to happen. And it works so well that it's a great finish to the film, and you can't really walk away saying he's wrong, even if you're anti-war, as most people generally are.
In regards to drone strikes, I would like to think that there was that much discussion being made about the life of one person.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think those discussions come up. I think villages are wiped out.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
I like at least the choice being made, at least, in the film. Right?
If you take that with a grain of salt, then it works as a pretty decent thriller, espionage/war film.
Yeah, it's not a terrible movie. I'm just...
Compared to Ender's Game, it's a masterpiece. But
yeah, it is.
Or X-Men Origins.
It is.
But compared to Ender's Game, a lot of movies are masterpieces.
Yeah. But it's a pretty decent thriller, and I would give it a half-decent recommendation.
Excellent. All right, what do I have? Not much. Just 2 quick things. I did see the Suicide Squad extended cut, and that was just released last week. Yeah, it hasn't changed my opinion of this film in any way whatsoever, except that it's 15 minutes longer. For the stuff that's been brought back and added, I would say it's deleted scenes that barely make disc. If you were to watch them, you would be like, well, I'm glad they didn't put that in the movie. No, this it did not work for me at all, this extended cut. In fact, it just made me angry. anger because you can tell that they didn't have anything on the cutting room floor that was worth putting back in, and this movie was misguided mess from the start.
The problem was the extended scenes didn't really give anything to the story. I think that they put these ones in because Harley Quinn got so much attention, so they focused more on her extended cuts. You know, showing her.
I thought
people liked her. Let's throw.
But I thought they were going to answer the question of where's Jared Leto's performance, where's the Joker, and I didn't. There's not one good extra Joker scene in this movie.
There was one like extended scene, but it wasn't anything great.
Nope.
It just showed Harley Quinn more being like a freaking teenage girl on Facebook. That was like, and then I did find that some of her interactions with the other squad members when she's kind of psychoanalyzing them. But the problem was it didn't fix the story issues. Like the main story was the biggest problem.
Yeah, the story is the big problem in this movie.
You know, adding more stuff to a couple of these characters, like more to Deadshot or more to
I guess
Harley.
what I'm saying is with Batman versus Superman, the extended cut was worthy of an extended cut.
Yeah,
I still it didn't change my opinion on that film either, but I can understand why they brought those scenes back. It answers a lot of questions that people had and fixes a few mistakes. There's none of that in this extended cut at all.
So do they give you the option to watch the theater?
Yeah, you get both versions of it. Really, it's just a cash grab. Like Darren's right, because I probably wouldn't have bought this movie if it wasn't. I would have waited. I was hoping the extended cut was going to be worth talking about on the podcast. It is not.
Yeah,
well, it's worth warning people away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If I can just do that.
It's not going to entice Darren to devote 2 precious hours to
I'll still never watch this film.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I would say watch it just out of the curiosity factor of what they're trying to do with this universe and how they're failing at it. Maybe.
If we like in the future when the next DC movie comes out, we do like a DC special when we discuss the universe.
Right, just so next year when we're saying goddamn Suicide Squad, you can go, that is shit.
If it's worse than Batman versus Superman, I'm glad I haven't watched it.
Then again, yeah, exactly. Be happy that you've saved yourself some time and money. Okay, the next one is Westworld wrapped up. Without a doubt, this is my favorite TV show of this year. I loved it.
Even ahead of Game of Thrones.
Yep. Game of Thrones is a continuing show, right? So I kind of felt the same thing I did with Fargo a few seasons ago. Like, this is my new favorite show for sure. It's such a great, complete 10 hours of television. It's we were talking about Arrival last week. It's this show was just as smart and maybe tackling its central ideas even more effectively.
Wow.
It's smart. It's got great performances. You cannot wait to see what's happening in the next episode. It has like great mystery to it. It ends phenomenally. Like, I know it's going to be a bit before season 2 comes out. Believe me, this 10 hours that you watch is worth the wait. I loved it. I hope you guys will all check it out so we can talk about the show because it's deep. It's got lots of ideas. Absolutely best TV show of 2016.
I find that those shows do have the advantage of being shorter, right? 10 episodes, so you know every episode is going to have something important to do with the story, that it's not going to be like, why... Doesn't make
this show is lean at 10 hours. There's no fat. It's not like the Netflix shows where they're stretching for material. Yeah. You can't walk away from this show. You can't look away. There's something going on through every episode, and you can get really lost really quick if you're not paying attention. It's one of those shows. It's of course it's some of the guys from Lost who are doing this.
It's high on my list.
Can't recommend it more.
Over the Christmas break, my wife and I are planning on getting into both that and Black Mirror.
I thought Darren, you'd be all over this.
Oh, I am.
Megan she'd love it too.
It's just time frame.
What do you got, kid or something?
Yeah, sadly.
I mean, he would love it too.
Yeah. I would make that choice again.
But he would love it.
Well, we'll watch it with him then.
Excellent. I'd like to know what Keaton would have to say. Fantastic.
He would say, zoom.
That's his new line lately.
That's one of them.
Very cute. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm all wrapped up. Should we call it quits for this week? Yeah, I don't know what movie we'll be back with next year.
I'm thinking Silence is the next one. I'd really like to talk about.
2016. Absolutely. I would like to see Martin Scorsese's movie. And next time we'll do a little wrap up 2016 as a whole and see what kind of year it was. Yeah. And movie wise. Yeah. Otherwise, 2016 was a terribly horrible, shitty year. Let's see if the movies can redeem it.
Took a lot of people from us.
That too. And
brought a lot of people we didn't need.
The election. Okay. All right, let's cut it short there. All right, we'll see you guys later. Ciao.
Bye.